The Kumara was a very important plant for the Māori. Now, I think the origins of Kumara are probably South American, but they've spread across Asia and the islands, and certainly they can be found in South America. But they found their way here to Aotearoa, New Zealand with the Māori, and they were probably the most palatable of the cultivated foods, and so they became extremely important. And so they developed their family tree, their whakapapa. Their whakapapa is that Rongo Mātāne, the god of cultivated foods, um, and Pani, his wife, gave birth to the Kumara. And so the whakapapa, the family history of Kumara, is that it goes back to Pani and Rongomatane, and so back to Papa Tuanuku and Ranginui, the Earth Mother and the Sky Father. It's a plant which is really interesting to grow and is almost symbolic of that the Maori, the early Maori gardens. The tubers were grown, as I mentioned before, in these little hills or puke. And in fact, right now is when most of them are being harvested. We harvest the major part of our crop yesterday, and there's an area which I personally planted, which I'm looking forward to seeing harvested probably tomorrow or Friday. And they're a plant which had, I guess, like a culture all of its own. And it was about when we had these kumara, if they failed, then we were back to eating bracken fern roots and other less palatable things. And so as a really valued source of starch, they were treated very, very carefully. So when they were grown, each different person within the tribe or group of people in the tribe had a role. So the men with what they called a ko, which was a long stick, probably flattened a bit on the bottom with a foothold, they turned the soil over. And usually it was the younger men who formed the puke, the little hills, and they would bring in sand and they would collect ash so they could add those to make a fertile heap. The planting was done by women, and they would always plant holding the plant in their hand like so, with the plant running along there and the shoot going up there. And when they put it in the ground, they would pull it down and along so that the bottom part of the shoot or the cutting would be underground but running parallel to the ground. And they always planted them from east to west. The reason they planted them like that way is the kumara formed all the way along those roots. And then they'd put the next one so that it just touched that one for maximum production. So it was women who did that. And if women were, for instance, carrying a child, then they wouldn't be allowed in the garden at all. And then finally, when the kumara were dug, it was the women who dug them because they were less likely to damage them. They were more careful. And I'm bound to say I was watching our men harvest them yesterday and had to say, whoa, 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 take it easy. We don't want to bruise them. We've got to save these because our ambition is to be able to provide food for the whole year. So we'll give some kumara out now, but we would store some so that we can provide those throughout the year. And there would always be a ceremony, which is when a chief or something digs the first puke or an important person, they would take those kumara and they would bind them with flax and they would take them and put them in front of a little stone which represented Pani, the mother of the kumara. And that would be the offering. And then the rest would be dug.